today's video. Today we are going to be talking about and reviewing and showing all kinds of things from the PUR Midnight Masquerade Face Palette. I received this in my October Boxycharm. I have been trying this out for 1.5 to 2 weeks now as my only palette for every day, so I've had a chance to try all the shades, formulate opinions about this, and that is what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk a little bit about this palette. We're not going to talk about the company PUR because I have done a ton of videos on different PUR products and I will link those down below. I'm going to show you my first impression day of this palette because I always find it entertaining to watch somebody use a product for the first time where they just don't know what to expect from it, and I wanted to include that in this video even though I have been testing it longer term for a fuller opinion. And I will give you my review and thoughts on this. For all of that, there are going to be timestamps down below. And just before we get into it, I would like to let you know if you have not yet joined my Pick Your Palette giveaway, or entered it I should say, and you are watching this before November 7th, 2018, I will include a link down below for the palette giveaway 2,500 subscriber video, so you can click on that, go watch that video and enter the giveaway. So let's talk about this palette. This is obviously a face palette. You get highlights, blushes, and eyeshadows in here. This retails for $38 on PUR's website, and let me tell you what they say about this palette. So the website says that Midnight Masquerade is a highly pigmented, limited edition 10-piece face palette with everything you need to transform your look and reveal your true beauty. There's nothing to mask here. Unveil endless beauty looks with Midnight Masquerade, a 10-piece good for your skin face palette that easily takes any look from natural and innocent to sultry and mysterious. Perfect for every makeup newbie or maven, this limited edition PUR palette is arranged with highly pigmented and buildable matte and shimmer shades that blend effortlessly into the face and eyelids for endless full face looks that stand out. Making a bold statement has never been easier with 4 shimmery face powders and 6 buttery, soft to the skin eyeshadows that complement all skin tones and eye colors. Blah, blah, blah. They say that it's infused with their energy complex of ginseng, vitamin B, and green tea. The highlighter, blushes, bronzer, and eyeshadows help energize the skin's metabolism for a healthier looking complexion well after the makeup comes off. After all, the party doesn't stop at midnight. There's a couple of things that I will point out that they say in there. PUR Cosmetics prides itself as part of its brand of having makeup that only makes you look good but makes your skin better. So that's where those, skin enhancing vitamins and minerals and ginseng and everything comes into it. I will also say though there is a mistake on there because they mentioned there is a bronzer shade in here, and unless they want you to use this matte brown as a bronzer, which would be very deep, there is not a bronzer shade in here, as you will see when we do the first impression day. So I think what we'll do is actually get into that first impression day because it will show you some things about this palette and then I will supplement it with my opinions at the end. So let's head into that first impression day. Somehow I ended up with incredibly strong brows today, but let's get everything else on my face because I just have foundation, powder, brows, concealer, and some lipstick on, so I need bronzer, blush, eye, shadow, all of that. I was going to put Enchantment on as bronzer, but I'm just swatching that and it looks a little like highlight, right? It does. I'm going to use an incredibly light touch and maybe try to put a little bit on. Could be a disaster, we'll see. Yeah, I'm just gonna stop right there because that is definitely a highlighter. So I am not going to be bronzing with this palette. So basically we have 2 matte blushes, a light highlight and a deeper highlight, which can also be used as eyeshadow. So instead, let's go into Hidden Secret, this very pink blush here. There is a little bit of powder fallout coming off, and whoa, that is very bright on there. So I'm just gonna tap some of that off and let's see how this goes. Okay, so it's not as crazy pigmented. Oh, yes it is. See, I'm trying to use this tiny little mirror in here. Let me get an actual mirror so I can see what is going on. Oh yes, that is crazy pigmented. Okay, I'm not gonna redip. I'm just gonna go over to this side and then, oh, what did I do? Oh, what did I do? That is a lot. And I still totally see this highlight right there that I put on. Okay, I didn't bring any powder in because I would normally go over this with powder to tone it down a little bit, but let me just try blending a bunch more. That is not toning it down. I'm gonna go get some powder, I'll be right back. So I'm just going to sort of go over it and tone it down with some pressed powder. Wow, I've never had this trick not work before, but that blush just keeps coming through. So it's a good thing I don't have a ton to do today. I am not gonna be, you know, seeing people that much, so I'm gonna let this ride and see how it goes. Now, I will say now, looking at this, now that I know that these are highlight shades, I thought I was going to be able to use one of those as a crease shade, because now from what I can see, the only mattes that are in here are the blushes and this one shade Sneak Peek right in the center. So I'm gonna take a fluffy brush and just very lightly go into Sneak Peek and use that to deepen up my crease a little bit. So that went on and blended quite nicely. So you can take that shade and make it much more subtle. And now I have a lot of really like popping shades to work with, which for an everyday look is going to be interesting. I'm gonna take a little flat brush here and go into Exposed, which is that silver, which doesn't pick up super well on a dry flat brush. Okay, I'm gonna try doing that just with my finger. Yeah, that works a lot better. And what I think I will do is try to use just a little bit of that purple disguise there in sort of the outer part of my lid to deepen it up a little bit. Getting some fallout there with that purple shade when I apply it with a brush. I'm finding it very hard to look past the terrible blush that I have going on right now. Oh, I'm just making all kinds of mistakes today. Okay, so it was a little bit of a fail, a little bit on the palette's part and a little bit on my part. It's really hard when most of these are shimmery or satiny shades or highlight shades. Let me pop a little bit of highlight on my cheeks. Since these are highlight shades over here, I'm just gonna go into the highlight with a big fluffy brush so I can get sort of a all over kind of shine. So I think the highlight is pretty. Okay, that's it for application. I will be putting on some mascara, but otherwise just getting on with my day. It is currently about 9 a.m., so I'll do some check-ins and see how this all looks as the day goes on. Hey guys, it is 2 o'clock and this has been on for about 5 hours. So I took a quick look or a close look in a mirror before coming in here, and the blush and the highlight is holding in strong. The matte on my lid is doing well. The shimmers are disappearing quite a bit. Like I can just sort of see the shimmer along the bottom part of my lid. I'll just zoom you in and show you. The mattes are still there, but you can just see like a little hint of the silver and not as much of the purple. So there we are. I will do one more check-in towards the end of the day. Hey guys, so it is towards the end of the night. Well, not that late. It's like 6:30. So this has been on for 9.5 hours, and I actually don't see a lot of difference from the 5-hour check-in to now. Like the mattes are still holding on fairly well. The shimmers are pretty much gone. The blush is hanging in there as well as the highlight. So I'm gonna keep playing around with this so that I can form a good, strong opinion on what I think of it, try out all the different shades and colors, everything like that. Yeah, and this was the first impression day. I was a little disappointed with the selection of eyeshadows. And I sort of wish there was a few more mattes in there, but as I said, I'll keep playing around with it. Now that first day was a little bit of a disaster. I did have a lot more luck with this palette afterwards. I'll zoom you in a tiny bit to show you my eye look today. It's not one that I wouldn't usually wear, but I wanted to wear a number of the shadows from the palette. So you can see I got the silver to work a lot better, the gold, and then I did a bit of that black out there on the outer corner, and then used the deeper highlight shade, which is called Enchantment, in the crease. This is editing Melissa jumping in to say that I can't believe how bad that left eye looked. You'll notice that the black is super patchy and gathered. It's because my eye was watering as I was filming this, and I didn't realize how much that eye watering moved the eyeshadow around. So I apologize for that, and please try to ignore for the rest of the video. Thanks. So I have lots of thoughts about this palette that are a little bit mixed. So let's go through and I will tell you my thoughts as we walk through this palette. First of all, I don't love the layout of this. I like that it takes advantage of all the space, but these are powdery. The blushes are powdery, the eyeshadows are powdery, and you may be able to see what's happening there if it focuses, which I can't tell, is the powders all transfer. So I've got a bunch of the blushes there into that silver. I'm getting some of the colors from the eyeshadows into the blushes and highlights. So because it closes together and they're all a little powdery, there's a bit more transfer back and forth there than you would really like. I know sometimes palettes like this have sort of a little plastic sheet in the middle so that, you know, the powders stay separated, which would be nice for this to have. I will start by talking about the highlighters. I actually think these are really nice highlighters. The light colored one is called Twilight and the deeper one is called Enchantment. And I will say that one of my favorite things is this light colored highlight because I actually do think it is just beautiful. Turn this down a little bit so you can actually see the highlight there. It's subtle but buildable, which is really nice. So while I think the highlighters are really nice, I have a problem with the blushes. You saw how crazy the first impression day there was of the lighter pink colored one called Hidden Secret. No matter how I use this and how much of a light touch I use, these are super pigmented blushes. And although I really feel like this should be pretty, there was no way that I could use it where it just didn't feel too bright, no matter how much I blend it, how much I went over it with powder afterwards, how light a hand I used. Just Hidden Secrets just didn't do what I wanted it to do. I actually found that Reveal here, the deeper one with the sort of purple undertones, looks much more natural on me as a blush. It's what I have on today, and I do find even if you have sort of a fairer skin tone like me, don't be afraid of blushes with purplish or mauve undertones. Am I even using that right? Let's just say purple. Purplish undertones. For me at least, it makes me look like I'm flushed in a very natural way. So although I really like the undertones and the color of this, again, it's so much more pigmented than I want a blush to be. Like I have to use a big fluffy brush, tap into this once, tap it off as much as I can, and just touch it to each cheek and then blend with another brush. Because if I move that brush at all on my cheeks, no matter how lightly I've tapped or how much I've tapped off, it's gonna be too much. And for me, blushes that are too pigmented can just ruin a look like that. And you know, as I've said, this brighter blush shade is one of the few that I haven't been able to fix going over top it with other powders, and it's just, that's a lot. So the blushes I'm not that happy with. Now let's talk about the eyeshadows. I think there are some hits and misses there. My first impression looking at this, and I think a lot of people's first impression looking at this will be that if this is supposed to be a face palette, as in, you know, maybe it's easy to travel with, it's all that you need in one place, these are really popping shades for being that. And a lot of people might think, oh, well, maybe it should be more neutrals, more transition shades. I'm kind of happy they went with these really bold shades. I will say that I wish they had a bronzer shade in here that would also double as a nice sort of mid-tone crease shade, because the only crease or the only matte they have in the eyeshadows is this Sneak Peek here, this very dark matte brown. I will say that I have done some really nice looks with these as transition shades, especially the darker blush here. So there is some really neat stuff you can do with it. But let me go through and talk about each of these shades and which ones I think perform well and which ones not so well. So the silver is called Exposed and the gold is called Mask Off. They are both quite nice, although I find the silver you really have to work to build up. You need a wet brush, you need to go over it a few times. It just takes a while to build. This gold is really pretty. It's got a tiny bit of a green undertone to it, which makes it look like kind of an antique gold shade, and it just comes out looking really pretty. Next to that, we have the matte brown and the purple. The matte brown is Sneak Peek and the purple is Disguise. I do find that the matte brown works really well. It is, you know, just what you want it to be, really nice and blendable. I had a couple of problems with it getting patchy, but I think that was more user error. And I did find that you could tone it down. You know, it doesn't need to be that dark all the time. Unfortunately, this purple shade, although it looks gorgeous, sort of finger swatch there, I couldn't ever get it to go onto my eyes with that level of intensity. And I think you can probably see that there. It just sort of doesn't come out sort of the shiny way that you want it to. And using wet brushes, using my finger, just nothing really worked to get it to look as pretty on my eyes as I wanted it to be from looking at it in the palette. The last, you know, column here is the shimmery blue called Showtime and the satin black called 12 a.m. And I will say that one of the standouts from this palette is that blue. Like, it is gorgeous, and PUR has done, you know, satiny blues really well before. I've worn this and it wears really well. This black 12 a.m, it's a disappointment. It just goes on, even finger swatch there, you can tell it's a little bit more charcoal. It doesn't really do what you want it to do as a black, and it's just a little underwhelming. But the blue there is absolutely gorgeous, and it goes on really well. I mean, it looks best with a wet brush applied, but it goes on and it stays on. So overall for this palette, it's such a mixed bag. I mean, the highlights are beautiful, but I find highlights are easy to find good highlights. It's not that difficult. So buying an entire palette for, you know, one good highlight shade is not something that I would do. The blushes are too pigmented, and when we look at these 6 shades, I would say that the gold, the matte brown, and the blue perform the best, but I am sure a lot of you, like me, have matte brown already in your collection, so you're really looking at it for the gold and that blue. For me, at least, I have another PUR palette that has a blue in it, along with a whole bunch of other sort of nice shades. That one is the, I'm gonna forget the name of the palette. I'm gonna put it down below here. So I don't feel like I can recommend this. It does make me want a face palette that works really well for me, because I really loved being able to take this out and have everything in one spot. And believe it or not, this is the first time I've had sort of a face and eye palette all together in one. And I really did love the convenience of it. But this one is only performing at 50%. And I want something that performs, you know, 100%, or at least like 80%. Give me an A and then I'd be happy. Will I reach for this again? Probably not. It makes me want to get out my PUR palette with the other blue in it and use that more, because I really do love the blue in this. But I just don't feel like I'm gonna reach for it that much. I will say that I'm happy that it's not a total neutral palette. That makes me a bit happier about this, that we did get that amazing gold and that amazing blue, but it just doesn't perform the way I want it to, so I just can't recommend it, unfortunately. But I would love to hear what you guys think of this palette. If you received this in your Boxycharm, what you thought of it, what you liked, what you didn't. If you have other face palettes you can recommend, leave that in the comments down below. I do try to respond to every comment that I get, and I love having conversations with you guys about products in the comment section. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel. I don't know why my mind went blank there on the word subscribe. You can click on my face, I'll make it pop up there. You can click on the thumbs up button if you like this video, and I will see you in my next video. Have a great day. Bye.